They called it the Age of Heroes. The late 19th century was a time of fervent nationalism and unbridled faith in technology. Humanity seemed poised on the brink of conquering every last corner of the globe, and the public followed each new expedition with breathless anticipation. It was a time when the blank spaces on the map called out to brave men, and no space was more alluring, or more stubbornly unconquered, than the geographic North Pole. For decades, explorers had tried and failed to reach it by sea and by land, their ships crushed by ice, their bodies broken by the brutal cold. The Arctic guarded its secrets fiercely. Then, in the summer of 1897, one of the strangest and most daring plans was put into motion, a plan that proposed to simply bypass the ice altogether. 3 men from Sweden, Salomon André, Niels Strindberg, and Knut Frenkel, decided they would fly to the North Pole. Their vessel was not a ship built to crush through ice, nor a sled to be hauled across it. It was a balloon, a massive silk bag filled with volatile hydrogen gas. Named Ernan the Eagle, it was a marvel of engineering, designed to be steered with an ingenious, if untested, system of sails and drag ropes. This idea was born from science and ambition. It was celebrated with parades. National pride swelled to a fever pitch. For Sweden, this was a chance to claim the ultimate geographical prize and assert its place on the world stage. The youngest explorer, Niels Strindberg, wrote in his journal, "Our mood is excellent. It is not a little strange to be floating here above the polar sea, to be the first that have floated here in a balloon." But it was also a plan filled with deadly risks, many of which were known, and tragically ignored. The balloon leaked more than expected. The steering mechanism was largely theoretical. It was a gamble against the most unforgiving environment on Earth, where a single mistake or stroke of bad luck meant a slow, agonizing death. Yet we begin with the dream itself, the ultimate prize, a final frontier. At its heart was one man's unwavering conviction. Salomon August André, an engineer and patent officer, believed he had a better way. For him the sky was not a barrier, but a highway. The leader of this audacious venture was Salomon August André. By trade, he was a respected engineer at the Swedish Patent Office, a man of science whose life was governed by precision and meticulous habits. He was not a rugged frontiersman in the traditional sense, but a modern man of the industrial age, convinced that any challenge, even the formidable Arctic, could be overcome with the right application of technology and rational thought. André saw the North Pole not as a wilderness to be conquered by brute force, but as a scientific problem awaiting an elegant, technological solution. His chosen instrument was the hydrogen balloon, a symbol of progress and ingenuity. He theorized that the stable southerly winds of the Arctic summer would provide a natural, effortless corridor, guiding his balloon, the Eagle, directly over the pole to the other side of the world. This unwavering self-assurance was perhaps his most powerful tool. In an era captivated by national pride and polar ambition, his vision was magnetic. He calmed the nerves of his influential backers, including King Oscar II and Alfred Nobel, and ignited the imagination of his countrymen, who saw in his quest a chance for Sweden to claim its place at the forefront of global exploration. Accompanying him was Niels Strindberg. At just 24, he was a brilliant physicist from a prominent family and a gifted photographer. Young, engaged to be married, and filled with intellectual curiosity, Strindberg represented the scientific heart of the mission. He was tasked with making the crucial astronomical and meteorological observations that would give the journey its scientific legitimacy. To document their unprecedented flight, he designed a special lightweight camera, a marvel of engineering capable of operating in the extreme cold. He was the expedition's designated eyes, entrusted with capturing the unseen landscapes of the polar basin and providing the world with its first-ever images from the top of the world. The third member was Knut Frenkel, a 27-year-old civil engineer and accomplished athlete. A late addition to the crew, Frenkel replaced a member who had grown fearful of the journey's risks. Strong, pragmatic, and accustomed to strenuous physical work, he was the expedition's hands-on technician. His responsibilities were immense and intensely practical, managing the cumbersome drag ropes designed to steer the balloon, maintaining the complex valve systems, and handling the endless heavy labor required to keep their fragile vessel operational in the harshest environment on Earth. He was the anchor, the physical force meant to balance the intellectual and visionary ambitions of his companions. Together, they formed a perfectly balanced trio. Each man, a crucial component of a larger machine. André, the visionary leader, Strindberg, the meticulous scientist, and Frankel, the indispensable technician. They were three men bound by a shared, extraordinary dream, to fly over the North Pole and carry the Swedish flag to the very top of the world. The vessel for their audacious dream was a marvel of 19th-century engineering, christened Örnen. The Eagle. It was a colossal statement of intent, one of the largest balloons ever constructed, designed not just for flight, but for conquest. For André and his nation, it was more than a machine. It was a symbol of progress, a tangible manifestation of the belief that human ingenuity could tame even the most hostile corners of the earth. Its vast envelope was meticulously crafted from 3 layers of fine, Chinese silk, bonded together and coated with a secret, proprietary varnish. When fully inflated, it would tower nearly 100 feet high, a shimmering giant against the Arctic sky. The design was intended to be robust, a fortress against the elements. To give it life, they chose hydrogen. The lightest of all gases, it offered immense lifting power, far superior to the hot air of earlier balloons. But this power came at a terrible price. Hydrogen is notoriously difficult to contain and explosively flammable. Suspended beneath this volatile giant was a cramped wicker basket. This gondola was to be their home, laboratory, and sanctuary for over a month. Every square inch was utilized, packed with scientific instruments, advanced cameras for aerial photography, and provisions for 30 days of flight, plus survival gear for a trek back on the ice. But the balloon's most critical feature, and its greatest gamble, was André's steering system. He believed he had solved the problem of navigating a free-floating balloon. His innovation involved 3 heavy drag ropes, trailing hundreds of meters below. By creating friction against the ice, they would slow the balloon to the speed of the wind, allowing a small sail to, theoretically, steer it. The theory, however, had a fatal flaw. It assumed a smooth, flat surface. On the jagged, unpredictable terrain of the Arctic ice, the ropes would either snag violently or lift free entirely, rendering the sail useless and the balloon uncontrollable. Worse, the friction of the ropes dragging across the ice would generate static electricity, a terrifying prospect aboard a craft filled with 170,000 cubic feet of explosive hydrogen. Even before these dynamic flaws were exposed, inspectors raised alarms about the balloon's basic integrity. They warned that the quality of the silk and the varnishing of the seams were imperfect. Small, persistent leaks were almost inevitable. Their fears were quickly realized. During inflation tests, Örnen leaked far more hydrogen than its design allowed, yet André pressed on, dismissing the concerns. Perhaps he trusted in last-minute fixes, or perhaps he was simply too weighed down by national expectation and the momentum of his own ambition to turn back. The Eagle was a machine of profound hope and equally profound flaws, brilliant on paper, but dangerously untested where it mattered most, in the unforgiving reality of the Arctic. The summer of 1896 was spent waiting. Winds refused to cooperate. July 11, 1897, at last a southerly wind. The launch was dramatic. The balloon shot upward with unexpected force. The drag ropes, meant to unscrew cleanly, tore away. Control was crippled within seconds. To those on shore, a magnificent sight, until the Eagle vanished into low clouds. Pigeons carried tidings. Our journey has gone well so far, sailing at about 250 meters. But in the basket, the mood was grave. Steering lost, fog wetting the silk, ice forming on the skin. Ice weight and hydrogen loss began to pull Örnen down. The dream was already turning into a struggle for survival. And yet, they drifted on, into uncertainty. For 65 hours they hung between sky and ice, a tiny basket beneath a leaking giant. Enveloped in fog, rime ice added a relentless weight. To stay aloft they threw ballast overboard. Sand, then buoys, then gear, even food. The winds carried them erratically, never steadily toward the pole. Strindberg captured haunting images from the basket. They took readings and tried to fix their position, but the sky refused to clear. Hour by hour they lost gas, altitude, and hope. By July 14th the basket bumped and scraped against the ice. With a jarring slide, Örnen came to rest. They stepped onto the frozen sea, their epic struggle only beginning. The crash was not violent, but But it was final. They inventoried food, gear, clothing, 3 sledges, heavy with hundreds of pounds each. The plan, march southeast toward Franz Josef Land. On July 22nd they abandoned Ernen and set out. The ice was chaos, ridges, cracks, and slush. Progress was agonizingly slow. The flow itself drifted, sometimes undoing a day's march. They kept careful diaries. Strindberg took stark photographs. Frenkel led. They hunted, shot bears, rendered meat and fat. But cold, damp, and exhaustion took their toll. Weeks became months. Pull, camp, find food, against a hostile, soaking cold. Clothes and boots stayed wet. Diarrhea, fatigue, and sores set in. A silent world, wind, ice, and labored breath. Bear meat sustained them, but trichinella likely poisoned them from within. André stayed methodical, Frenkel practical. Strindberg's notes to Anna revealed love, dreams, and despair. We have not had a warm meal for several days. My comrades are tired. I am also not in good shape. By late September they sighted Kvitoya, White Island. The floe split beneath them. They reached land at last. Not salvation, just a final windswept outpost where winter closed in. Strindberg died first, buried in shallow stones. The diary faltered, then fell silent. In the summer of 1930, Norway's Brattvåg expedition landed on Kvitoya. By chance, they found a canvas boat, sledges, and frozen instruments, then a body, and the diaries. The mystery was solved. The world was stunned. Strindberg's plates, frozen for decades, were painstakingly developed in Stockholm. About 90 images emerged, ghostly witnesses to their journey. The photographs and diaries told a story of failure and astonishing courage. André's plan was flawed. Overconfidence met the brute force of nature, yet we admire their audacity, the bravery to aim for the sky. Courage and poor judgment can walk hand in hand. Pioneers are often both. In their failure they left a timeless, deeply human story of struggle and endurance.